This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
By popular demand, Place to Be Nation Wrestling returns to the Dirty South for Talk'n WCW, an episodic wrestler showcase designed to educate, evaluate, and entertain, with matches spanning the intimate stage of Techwood Studios to the heights of Space Mountain. Talk'n WCW presents the best, worst, and most surreal offerings from World Championship Wrestling. So cast your gaze to the Turnertron with hosts Jennifer Smith, Tim Capel, and Greg Phillips.
Place to Be Nation. Hi, my name is Jennifer Smith. Welcome to Talk'n WCW. I'm here with the Bobby Heenan to my Dusty Rhodes. It's Tim Capel. How you doing, Tim?
Ooh, well, I got big shoes to fill if I'm Bobby Heenan, man. And tonight, not Dusty's favorite, but Dusty himself. Look at you.
I know, right? I'm moving on up.
All right. Well, with that said, we do have our, I guess he has to be Tony Schiavone to herd us like cats, which we will be hearing a little bit of in tonight's match selection. So, filling in for the guy whose chair sits above all, that is Greg Phillips. Greg?
Well, fans, we've got a big show tonight, fans. I want to direct you all to BlueChew.com if you want a low-key big hog.
Chew it and do it.
Yeah, superharddick.com, folks.
Yes, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be the Tony Schiavone here. I'm hoping I can bring a little levity and a little, fascinating insights from behind the chair from our experiences watching these matches that we're here to talk about tonight.
Yes, and your chair is so high that you are hanging from the rafters, practically. And you were responsible for tonight's subject. For Greg Phillips. You chose Rey Mysterio, then Jr. Not so much. I guess he's, it's a branding thing with the WWE and their guys, and
yeah, they don't like juniors.
They don't like juniors for it. That's probably more a Vince McMahonism than a branding issue. But at the time, he was, of course, known as Rey Mysterio Jr., the luchador who broke out from the pack. Debuted in 1996 and stuck around through the very end of the promotion. In fact, he wrestled. He had a match on the very last Nitro. So, pretty storied career to Rey Mysterio in WCW. But I want to ask you why you chose this man for our show.
Well, I'm glad you asked. There are several reasons here, Tim, for my selection of Rey Mysterio Jr. Number one, he was a handsome young man.
Oh, he was a nice-looking young man when the mask came off.
Exactly. And in these days, of course, he wore a mask. And that was a marketing opportunity that certainly WCW would not have passed up had they the opportunity to sell Rey Mysterio Jr. masks to children. Mm-hmm. And so that was one other reason. The other reason, the prominent reason why I selected him is I feel like we've had a lot of good variety on this show to this point. You know, we've done good old-fashioned Southern grapplers like Dusty and Dustin Rhodes. We've done the violence of the War Games. We've done the greatness of the Nature Boy Ric Flair. We've done a tag team with the Steiner brothers. Mm-hmm. And I thought, let's keep the spirit alive, because the thing that I loved the most about WCW, I've come to realize in my adulthood, was the variety. The fact that when you watched an episode of WCW Monday Nitro or WCW Saturday Night or a WCW pay-per-view event, you were as likely to see a wild, arena-wide brawl as you were to see two luchadors go out and have a 15-minute lucha libre classic, or to see two Japanese wrestlers go out and have a hard-hitting, strong style affair, or to see Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage have a 1980s WWF style match. You just had so much variety, and I felt it was time to shed a light on the cruiserweights of WCW. And so to do that, I decided to focus in on who I believe is the greatest cruiserweight wrestler of all time, Rey Mysterio Jr.
Wow.
Well said.
I can't say I disagree with that claim necessarily, especially diving back in and sort of rediscovering the early days in particular of Rey Jr. It's hard to believe he's still at it today, not only just based on age, but given his style and how much that style has evolved, necessarily, I would say. But he really was something you had never seen on a national stage in the mid-'90s. So lot of this, and I think our first match that we're going to take a look at is a great example of this, having to expose and educate this North American audience, this U.S.-based audience, I should say, to this new style of wrestling that they're kind of like, okay, this is really good and really fast-paced and exciting, but I don't quite know what to make of it. And we will see how sensibilities sort of change throughout the years.
It's hard to explain to modern fans, because so much of what you see now is a direct evolution of what Rey Mysterio Jr. and the other cruiserweights introduced in our brand of wrestling as kids. The guys that are wrestlers now are of our generation, and they grew up watching the same guys that we grew up watching, and they had the same experience that we all had. I remember the first time I saw Rey Mysterio Jr. on my television screen, it was like a bolt of lightning striking before me. I had never seen anything like it before. And so you can see it now. The things that he did in 1996, guys are doing routinely now. But at that time, nobody had done it on the national stage, as you put it. And also to do it with his level of effectiveness, and there were still certain things, and we'll talk about this over the course of the show. I think there are still certain things when I watch him do them that I still think he did better than a lot of the guys today do. So maybe we'll talk about that.
Yep. Well, with that being said, Jenny, you actually chose the match that is chronologically first on our list. And it is from Bash at the Beach from July 7th, 1996, the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach, Florida. This show, nothing really happened on, right?
No.
Nobody really remembers.
Nah.
No big
Meaningless.
Not intriguing at all.
Another boring, uneventful WCW wrestling event.
Yeah. You watch it on Sunday and you forget about it by Monday. You know how this goes. It very notable pay-per-view, obviously, for its main event. But people kind of legitimately forget, it's a solid show, like top to bottom. There's a lot of good stuff on here. And particularly, we have Rey Mysterio, who had debuted in the company at the Great American Bash pay-per-view, his pay-per-view debut, just a month before this, right? So here he is taking on longtime rival Psychosis. Jenny, what do you got for us?
Okay. Before we get into the match, I want to talk a little bit about the way that WCW spells things.
Yes.
Because I had several embarrassing conversations on my end, because when I watched this match, I had the captions on, and every time they said Psychosis, it was spelled a different way than it's actually spelled. And so in my text messages to you guys, I would spell it the way I saw it in commentary. And then I was like, I need to look this guy up. And then I saw his name was not spelled the way I had been spelling it. And then I was like, y'all ain't going to say nothing about me just misspelling this shit. Like, several times in these text messages. And then that led to a conversation about how everything in the WCW is misspelled.
Right.
And this is even more reason that I know that this is the promotion for my life, because I'm a notoriously bad speller.
Same.
In your defense, Jenny, even the illustrious, learned Iron Mike Tenay goes with that misspelling at one point, because when they ask him to describe Psychosis' style, he says, "It's in his name, Psycho."
And that's why it didn't even occur to me that it was like the wrong spelling. I mean, it looked correct to me, you know. It was just.
And it's funny, you're going through this great anxiety in the group chat in your head internally, and Greg and I'm sure never thought anything of it, because we were like, everyone spells this a million different ways. Yeah. It's just a WCW thing. I mean, you've even seen like Mysterio spelled with an M-I rather than a M-Y sometimes. So it's like, who knows? There's the whole...
Oh, go ahead.
Eddie, Eddy, which I almost like, did they actually use that, or was it more of a Dave Meltzer special where, like, remember how he would do, like, Jesse Jamis in his, his newsletter? And I'm like, did they ever actually use that, or was he just a terrible misspeller also? And, you know, just all the variations on things that you just... It drives you nuts if you're trying to pay attention to the details, and it's just so not worth it sometimes, because I think the ultimate... Lex Luger, yes, thank you. You have, at that one Clash of the Champions, Ric Flair, R-I-C-K.
Right.
Wow, what are you doing?
And
this will come up again in another match.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't know until 2 years ago that it's Mike Rotunda and not Mike Rotundo, because they spelled it different ways throughout his entire career in both the WWF and WCW.
Yeah.
Y'all can see how this is very confusing for someone like me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But also
and especially when you have legitimately different... I mean, look at Juventud Guerrera versus all of the Guerreros. I mean, that's a notable difference. Like, if you fuck that up, you're really going to confuse someone, you know? And I think they were pretty careful about that distinction, but I am real surprised that never, you know, went the way of some of this psychosis stuff.
And how? And is it the Dudley Boys or is it the Dudley Boys?
Well,
boys.
That's an altogether different conversation.
All right. So anyway, I've already got us sidetracked and haven't even started anything yet.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So I ended up watching probably 6 or so matches to try to choose something, and then this one stood out to me, in a large part because I am a sucker for commentary, and this one was weird because it was Tony, Dusty, Bobby, and then they brought in Mike Tenay, who I've not heard a lot of before, and who tries to call this whole match like a legitimate sporting event. I don't know if that's his gimmick. I assume it is. Okay.
Yep.
So it was just very odd to have this very weird conversation going on underneath this very surprising to me match, because when I thought about Rey Mysterio, I thought, okay, so we're going to be watching some luchador stuff. It's going to be fast-paced. It's going to be flippy and fly. And that's what I expected going into this. And then I didn't get as much of that as I thought, because Psychosis seems very... He was very much early on into the match into the submission holds, and then they were doing a lot of mat work, and he was trying to keep Rey not flying everywhere. So it took me aback quite a bit to see a lot of the more traditional wrestling I didn't expect, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, There were several great spots that was more in line of what I was expecting. And especially the big bumps that they took off the side into the railing at several points.
Yep.
So much fun to watch. And then Dusty and Bobby are snipping at each other the whole time.
I was talking to Iron Mike. Oh, sorry. Hey, Tony, better stop it. He was talking to Iron Mike.
It was so funny and just so off center from what was happening. You know, it just very weird to have 4 people on commentary for me, and then one that was taking, like, Mike was very, take charge. Like, he was talking the most out of everybody, and he was trying really hard, and he was calling every fucking move that they did. Like, if somebody fucking wiped their nose, he was calling it the fucking nose wipe or some shit. But I mean,
what a spinning corkscrew hip block!
It was a little bit much, but it was just so funny because Bobby in his little mocking way would just try to undermine Mike and everything that he was saying. It was working. It was so weird. Am I wrong in thinking how weird that was?
No, you're not wrong. For one thing, it's a 4-man booth, which already is kind of chaotic. Yeah, that's crowded. You know, it's WWF typically is associated with the classic 2-man. You just got the one play-by-play and one guy on color, and WCW always liked to do a 3-man booth. And here, adding Mike Tenay to the equation, I can kind of see why they did it, because as much as I absolutely love that trio of Tony and Dusty and Bobby, it is a lot of, for lack of a better word, shtick, you know, where it's, I mean, I joked about it earlier, but it's Tony kind of trying to corral these guys who are being very entertaining, no doubt, but does run the risk of taking away from whatever match it is. Now, if it's a Carson City Silver Dollar match, you could really give a shit. You'd rather just listen to them riff on it. But when you have this new style of match that you're trying to get over and you're trying to present, I think they sort of felt like, Tony might need some backup here.
And plus, Mike sort of served that role of giving the backstory of, like, these guys had, you know, he taught me so much when I was a kid, because, like, you know, Rey Mysterio was 21 years old during this match, and so he was so he's been a pro for 8 years. So when did he start? When he was a kid, literally when he was a kid. And it's like, and he said he was wrestling as a child in Mexico, and these two have been rivals since they first went to wrestling school together, and all of this stuff. And then you'd have, you know, occasionally,
which is all legit stuff. I mean,
it was very interesting.
Not what you're not going to get that from Tony Schiavone, right? That's just not really his thing. And I know people like to, it's easy to make fun of Mike Tenay being sort of the dork that he is with this whole professor gimmick, right? But it was believable because he kind of was a mark for this stuff, and he did have that expertise. So,
and it filled such a niche role for him, and I mean, he was perfect. I never liked him necessarily as the lead guy in TNA, but, like, in this role as like the fourth wheel or the third wheel in some cases, he was really good. I thought he could pipe in with some really good knowledge. Now, at times, to Jenny's point, there are times when the announcers step on each other's toes a little bit here, and there's a lot of cross traffic. They would work on that over the years and get better and better at it. This may have been one of the first shows where he was, like, you know, a prominent force in the announce team, but he was. They would figure it out eventually and work out a pretty good chemistry between the lot of them, especially Dusty and Bobby when they would team up on Tenay to make fun of his convoluted words for things.
Yes, they did that several times. And I was enjoying Mike in that, like you said, he's very knowledgeable, and like I want to know what this stuff is called, but then he just kept taking it a little too far. You know, he would just at one point he compares luchadors to Batman, and then I'm like, what? And but then like the like cynical and like petty side of me was like really snickering when Bobby would get a little zinger in, or when Bobby and Dusty. I know I'm talking way more about them than I am about Rey, but it's just it was just the combination.
Well, they're sniping at each other with like that line that I mentioned earlier, where Dusty's trying to ask Tenay something, and then Bobby comes in to chime in something for the match, and Dusty goes, "Excuse me, I was talking to Iron Mike." And then Bobby goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then Tony starts to call the next move, and he goes, Tony, shh. Dusty was trying to talk to Iron Mike. And then Tony, you know, we think of Tony and Bobby as having this contentious relationship all the time. But then Tony, to his credit, plays along with Bobby's joke. And he goes, hey, Dusty, just elbow me. Just nudge me the next time you want to talk to Iron Mike, okay?
Yes.
And then there was a bit at the end of the match when they're trying to call the replay, and Bobby's completely lost on the replay. Like, I don't even know what they're doing. I don't use the words Tenay does. This is a dissing horse. And Tony goes, a dissing horse. Very good. It's like an alpha. Like, very good, Master Wayne.
But getting back to Rey, I guess. Oh, well, I do have to say I do adore the way that Dusty says psychosis. It's fucking hilarious.
Well, he also gets to say guillotine.
Oh my god, yes.
A guillotine leg drop.
Which was awesome, by the way.
Yes. Dusty should always say guillotine leg drop.
Yes. Dusty should always say all the words, especially psychosis. Anyway.
Dusty and Arnold Schwarzenegger would be an ideal commentary team.
But yeah, that guillotine leg drop was quite impressive. And
no doubt.
One of the big spots. Oh my gosh. Rey is quite a bit smaller than probably everybody, but in particular, he looks quite a bit smaller than Psychosis. So I wasn't expecting that either, or for him to look like a giant bull or whatever his mask was there.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
he bent one of his horns.
He bent one of his horns. So
very striking look there.
Yeah,
right?
Extremely. Yes. I like how it looks like he has abs painted on his little suit there. That's
undoubtedly influenced by Giant Gonzalez.
Obviously.
Oh yeah, you got to get the almost like they're spray painted on.
And then what really sold me and pretty much made me pick this match, other than the things that I've mentioned, was the finish. Because I don't guess anybody had seen this move that Rey does before. Nobody had seen this ever, and it was amazing. And Tenay, what does Tenay call it?
Splash Mountain.
So, yeah,
reverse splash
Niagara
mountain
Falls or some shit.
He's known in some places around the world as a Niagara driver. Yeah. He's explaining this as the move is happening.
Yes.
It's a Splash Mountain reverse. Some folks call it a Niagara driver. Some folks calls it a sling blade.
Whatever. It was cool as fuck. All right. And
it was amazing.
Yeah, and it's everybody went nuts for it. Huge pop for Rey, and it was beautiful. So anyway, what did you guys think about that?
If there was any doubt as to what happened after the match, they cut to Mean Gene standing with Konnan, and he says, "Konnan, the Mexican champion. Before we talk about your match later on with the Nature Boy Ric Flair, I need you to talk to me about what we just saw." Well, what you saw was Psychosis was going for a modified Splash Mountain, and Rey Mysterio reversed to a Frankensteiner. Ha! The damage. He didn't say that. So this match was spectacular. I mean, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Jenny, and particularly the finish was mind-boggling at the time. But a few notes about this match from my recollection of watching it for the first time. Psychosis, when I first saw him, I thought was Jushin Thunder Liger in a different name because he had the Peg Bundy hair, as Bobby Heenan put it, the long kind of Peg Bundy hair, the horned mask. And so I remember when I was a kid, I was like, did Jushin Thunder Liger change his name or something? But as I watched the match, I was like, he's a little bit bigger than Liger was, and he has a different style. And I thought it was as good a showcase for Psychosis as it was for Rey. Obviously, Rey was the star, the guy they were trying to get over, but Psychosis looked really good and helped put the whole match together. And to your point, Jenny, I think watching it through modern eyes, we're kind of conditioned when these style of wrestlers get together that it's just going to be move after move after move after move. And one of the things that we forget is that, or that I even forgot from when I was watching as a kid, is that there was a lot of mat wrestling in these matches. And now it's kind of like, why is he doing that? Why would he go to a head scissors or whatever after he just did a flip? And it's like, well, they're trying to, wrestle a match that is not, they're trying not to blow people's minds too much, I think, with what they're doing, because they're, the audience can only process so much at that time. And and so they have their spectacular moments, but they're spacing them out in between traditional wrestling holds that people might be used to seeing. And I thought they did a good job of ramping up the action as the match progressed. It's a little bit slower in the early going, and then as they get closer and closer to the finish, they're speeding things up and they're hitting more and more moves. And just some spectacular moments here. Rey's ability to hit the Hurricane Rana or Frankensteiner out of any situation.
Yeah.
The announcers did a great job of putting over that he could hit it from anywhere, and that he was, I think at one point Mike Tenay even says that Scott Steiner was one of Rey Mysterio Jr.'s idols, which I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what Mike Tenay says. That's where he got the Frankensteiner from. Don't call it a Hurricane Rana.
Yeah,
God's sake.
That's right.
And he's just all over the place. He's flying around. He's springboarding, which people didn't do in those days. He's looking like a superhero, truly like an undersized superhero, somebody that was doing things that were larger than life. He may not be larger than life in terms of his physique or size or anything like that, but he was larger than life in terms of his athleticism and the fact that he could do things that seemingly no other human being that you had seen could do. I remember another memory of Rey Mysterio Jr. from this time was the first time my dad watched him on Nitro, and he said, "Who is that again?" And I told him, "That's Rey Mysterio Jr. He's one of the cruiserweights." And he goes, "He must have been a gymnast or something. He must be a gymnast that turned into a wrestler. That guy, I ain't never seen anybody do shit like that." He was just really great, and this match was an awesome showcase for him. That finish, the Splash Mountain thing was really, really great. But even the build up to it, the tilt-a-whirls, the tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, Psychosis was outstanding. Rey's selling was outstanding. I was impressed that a Daytona, Florida crowd got as into that match as they did by the end. I thought that was really good work from both guys, because we've all seen WCW shows where the crowd kind of can not be interested in these kinds of matches. So I thought that was really great. So I don't really have much more else to say about it than that. It's outstanding. One of the best pay-per-view openers of all time for sure. Great match from two great wrestlers.
Yeah, I know we don't do star ratings on this show, but if I were to do star rating, would this get a full 5 stars? No, but damn close. I mean, people forget how fucking good this match is. And the two of these guys had a ton of history, which, Jenny, you'll get to see someday on your ECW podcast.
Oh, nice.
Indeed.
Yeah,
the proto version of their WCW feud was had in ECW.
Yep. So you'll see some more great matches between these two. And it's funny, these singles lucha-style matches would typically start off with a little bit of mat work, like we talked about. And it always felt like a little bit of a formality, before they got into the good stuff. And if you want to sort of, I don't know, kayfabe that away, you could say that because these workers are so quick and so agile that kind of thing just doesn't work. So they just keep escaping every hold that you try, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so then you have to break out all the crazy dives, and it just starts escalating from there. It's just sort of like this, almost this arms race between two high flyers. And of course, you've got Psychosis as a cruiserweight, but a little bit taller than most. Rey, also a cruiserweight, but kind of shorter than most. You figure that would be sort of a clash that they wouldn't really gel, and in some ways they don't here, but it's in a way that I think enhances the match more than anything. In particular, there's a spot that I singled out where Rey hits his springboard Hurricane Rana pin, which springboard Frankenstein, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Sure, yeah.
And that's what he was using or what he would use to finish a lot of his matches in this era. And it does not finish here. Psychosis kicks out, but it's believable, again, because of the size of Psychosis. And you're like, okay, well, we're going to keep going. And wow, if that didn't finish, I wonder what the finish to this match is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And holy shit, do they ever, you want that to be the spot of your match, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want a big finish that's going to be decisive and pop the crowd. And man, I mean, not even for 1996, for today, just the degree of difficulty on that move and the riskiness. You're already on the top rope. He's already elevated and now has to time it just right to hit this reversal. It's magnificent.
It's a work of art.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about somebody defying gravity. That's what it looks like here with that Splash Mountain reversal spot that Konnan so wonderfully called for us. But I want to say we saw this in one of the matches in the Cruiserweight Classic just a couple years ago. I don't remember which one. Matter of fact, doing this podcast, this particular episode has kind of inspired me to want to go back and revisit that, because so many of those guys, as you were saying, Greg, are of our generation and came up on these matches and were really inspired and are lifting spots wholesale from a lot of these matches. And I want to say we saw that at some point in that tournament, but anyway, it's for good reason, not something.
I think it was one of the Kota Ibushi matches that it happened in, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
that would make sense. But just, a lot of matches you sort of have to watch through a 1996 lens, right? For whatever that means. And this is not one of them. You could have taken this and dropped it right into that Cruiserweight Classic, and it would have been a classic. Be a classic today, was a classic back then. I love this match. I'm so glad somebody picked it, because I absolutely had it on my short list.
One of the most influential matches probably in American wrestling from that decade, no doubt. It changed the game on because we had seen Rey Mysterio work against Dean Malenko a couple times before this, and those were mind-blowing in their own way, but this was something different. This was not losing the mat wrestling, but with they had a different artistic ideal in mind with this match, and it opened the eyes to everybody and showed what was to come with the luchadors coming in and all that. So amazing stuff. Great choice, Jenny. Great selection.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed the research, I will say that.
Excellent. Yeah, that's part of the fun of doing this sometimes. It's, just discovering things you never knew would be really up your alley. So we are next going to take a look at another match from 1996. Look at you guys hanging out in 1996 for a change.
1996, friends unite.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Greg picked his match first, and I wanted to sort of switch it up, but then I just sort of fell in love with that match, and I was like, I'm sorry, I just have to talk about that match. So we're just going to have two from 96.
We're just going to have to. Normally my jurisdiction, but you guys are with the year tonight. So this one is from the Norfolk Scope in Norfolk, Virginia, my state of residence. It is the second World War III.
If you thought one World War III was the end of the world, wait until World War III 2.
They had World War IIIs on a rather annual basis in WCW for a while. It's just,
that makes sense.
It makes as much sense as anything else.
Exactly.
And this was from November 24th of 96. It is the opener, Rey Mysterio versus Ultimo Dragon. Greg, I just have a question for you before I turn it over.
Please ask me.
I'm just a little torn because it sounds like you've been very complimentary of Rey Mysterio Jr. up to this point. And after watching this match, all I could think was, boy, you must really be down on Rey Mysterio. Want all the worst things in the world to happen to him and to him only.
Yes.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, Tim, because I've realized something about myself in recent years in my adult wrestling fandom. I think I always knew this about myself, but we've talked about it on your old Survey Says show that I'm something of a fetishist when it comes to the heel or the villain just beating down the hero, like dominant victories for the villain. Going back to my childhood of reading comic books with the death of Superman, right? Doomsday beats Superman into death, literally. And I love that story, even though I was a kid and it made me cry and all that. So Sting and Vader, right? Sting and Vader, Great American Bash in 92. I love that match. Brock Lesnar and John Cena at whatever SummerSlam that was. Yeah. Where Brock Lesnar beat him until there was blood and urine and mucus or whatever it was.
Vomit
and piss and all that stuff. I love that kind of thing. I love those kind of matches. You remember that one match, this is off WCW's topic, of course, but that one match that Randy Orton and John Cena had where it was Randy Orton just beating John Cena with a stick for like 25 straight minutes?
Yes.
And then they ruined it by John Cena actually winning. But that's beside the point. The torture part of that was great. And so, and so that's what I remember about this match that I selected, this Ultimo Dragon, or is it the Ultimate Dragon? I'm not sure.
I was going to ask you.
Here we go.
Yeah. Is it?
I mean, Mike Tenay would have to do a video on Nitro after this explaining that while we thought of it as being the Ultimate Dragon, actually, no, it was Ultimo Dragon, and that meant the last student of Bruce Lee.
All right.
Wow.
Which he was not. But I'm pretty sure Bruce Lee was dead when he was born, in fact. But nonetheless, he is the Ultimo Dragon, or Ultimo Dragon, as they would sometimes call him. But he is here, and I picked this match because I remember watching this match and just marveling at what a colossal butt-kicking Rey Mysterio Jr. takes at the hands of Ultimo. And what's interesting is my memory of this match was that this was Ultimo's debut in WCW, which it was not, of course.
No.
My memory of it was that, but he had actually wrestled Rey twice before this, as Mike Tenay and Tony Schiavone helpfully point out on commentary. Not Mike Tenay, Tony Schiavone points out on commentary. And but those prior encounters were kind of shorter matches that were sort of introducing the two characters to one another. This was like the introduction of this new badass version of Ultimo Dragon. He had now scouted Rey Mysterio. He knew him, and he shows up with his 8 championship belts, for God's sake, looking like the baddest MFer on the planet, with Sonny Ono, my favorite manager of WCW. And he shows up there, and he just proceeds to demolish Rey over the course of 15 minutes or so, in just spectacular and glory, to the point where the announcers, even the heel announcer Bobby Heenan, is taking sympathy on Rey Jr. at points during this match, saying, just stay down, kid. Just stay down. He's just getting... And yet, and what I love about it is Rey continues to fight back. He never dies. He comes just this close to dying, but he doesn't quite... He saves himself at the last second. And then, of course, it's all for naught. But I loved this match because it just progresses. Like, it starts out and they're just wrestling and kind of having some mad exchanges, and Dragon's maybe getting the better of it. Then it gets some more high-impact moves, and Dragon's get the better of it. And then as it gets further and further along, Dragon just unloads an arsenal of offensive moves on Rey, and each one you think is going to be the end of the road, and Rey just gets his shoulder up at the last second and continues to fight back. So just that never say die attitude in Rey. He almost gets the win a couple times with a small package out of nowhere, and then he comes back later and hits the Hurricane Rana and almost gets the win with it, gets a couple roll-ups and almost gets the win. But really, there's no doubt that unless there's a fluke, that Dragon's the better man on this night, right? So yep. I love that they stuck to that story. Rey Mysterio's selling was out of this world in this match. He was so good at getting sympathy from the crowd. And the proof that he got that sympathy, because it would be easy in a match like this to turn the crowd and for the crowd to start cheering Ultimo because he's a badass. But Rey gets that sympathy, and it shows when he makes his comeback at the end, because that crowd was on fire for him when he hit especially when he hits the kind of springboard corkscrew dive out of the ring on top of Ultimo towards the end. And it's like it really feels like the momentum is shifting in his favor for a moment. Of course, short-lived. But it's really good stuff there. Also, I want to point out that Rey Mysterio Jr. is wearing his Spider-Man outfit this match, which is the same attire that he would have in the video game WCW versus the World, if anyone remembers that.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure, having watched a little bit more of this show, that the AKI, the developers of that game, actually took all their character renders from this show, World War III, because they also used this version of Sting, this version of Jeff Jarrett, this version of whoever else was on the game. So anyway, Rey is on there.
It makes a lot of sense because pretty much the entire card is on this one show. It's got the 60-man battle royal, so you get at least a look, a glimpse, even if that's all you're going to see, of basically everyone. So there could be something to that.
And just that costume from Rey, one of my favorite of his costumes, the Spider-Man outfit, and Ultimo looks great, of course, as always. Awesome back and forth action here. Well, really not back and forth, mainly just back, as in backhands, back kicks,
getting pushed back.
The commentary I thought was outstanding actually in this match, because there's a couple times when they start getting off track, and then I can't remember if it was Dusty or Bobby that says, "Oh, I'm just trying to call this match, guys," and that kind of gets them all back focused again, and they get back to telling the story, which is that Ultimo is just beating the hell out of this kid, and this kid doesn't know sometimes when to quit. I mean, Bobby even says, I think it's more stupid than anything else that he won't stay down because he's getting just demolished and eaten alive here. And some of these moves from Dragon were just...
Oh, my God.
God, the power bombs, the backbreaker, that spinning tornado, like, torture rack backbreaker thing that he does.
Yes.
There's dudes in the front row standing up just, like, cringing, as Rey is selling his back injury. I think this this match is magnificent. I always have. I've loved it since the first time I watched it. I think it was the best way to introduce a new cruiserweight that I've ever seen, because after this, Ultimo was a made man. Like, he was a believable threat to anybody in the company, in that division anyway. And it didn't hurt Rey any, because Rey still put up a good fight. He just wasn't the better man on that night. And they would come back and have many great matches with each other. But I don't think any of them match the originality of this one in terms of telling this compelling story that you didn't really get in the Cruiserweight division a whole lot. So for me, I had two matches I was going between, one of which was really, really obvious. And so I wanted to go with this one because this one doesn't get a whole lot of love, and it's one of my all-time favorite WCW matches probably. So big fan of the Ultimo Dragon Squash.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more in terms of the story that is being told here. And Tony did a good job of that. It seems like without Mike Tenay, without him there to sort of lean on and do the kind of heavy lifting of giving you the backstory and just calling the moves and all the Tenay stuff that he did that we saw in our last match, they're sort of compensating. And maybe they even said going in, hey, we're not going to have Mike out here. let's maybe try not to act like a bunch of jackasses because there's something that there's a story that we want to put over with this match, and get the show off to a good start. So Tony is explaining that they had a previous encounter at the Hog Wild pay-per-view that was in August of '96, which Rey actually won that match. So it's not like Ultimo Dragon here is an unknown quantity to Rey Mysterio Jr. Rey has faced him and knows he can beat him, and here it's kind of like they're just having a rematch, right? But as you said, Greg, in the intervening months, Ultimo has kind of refocused and has acquired the J Crown, that constellation of 8 different belts that he is just adorned with when he comes out. Just, as you said, looks like the baddest motherfucker on the planet. Isn't one of those belts actually the WWF light heavyweight?
I think so. I think so, yeah. There's some convoluted backstory, yes. The once held by the likes of Tatsumi Fujinami, I believe. Yeah,
and it was like the WWF stopped defending it, and it just kind of got lost in Mexico, I think, and eventually, like, continued being defended in matches that weren't quote-unquote sanctioned by the WWF, and they kind of just didn't care. So that's kind of hilarious. But, yeah, I mean, so Dragon comes back here, and immediately you're like, oh, this is a different performer now. And as good as Rey is, Dragon is just a cut above him. It's not that Rey looks like some loser, like some jobber who gets his ass kicked. Like, no, he's hanging in there, but Dragon is just that much better. And when he kind of just takes over and that tide fully shifts in his favor, it doesn't let up. A lot of Ultimo Dragon matches in this era are a bit one-sided, where like he would take most of the match. That was sort of he often would do that. And God, one-sided doesn't really begin to describe what this match turns into. It almost qualifies as a homicide. I mean,
well, there's one. I think I sent you guys a video last night during the Dragon Suplex where he spikes Rey on the top of his head, and I was like, "Good God, he killed him!"
So you got that Dragon Suplex. You've got German suplexes. You've got brain busters. You've got 2 tombstone pile drivers, one of which is on the floor.
Oh my gosh!
Tombstone pile drivers.
One on the floor, and you're like, good Lord, the running power bomb, not to be confused with the double power bomb early in the match, where he power bombs and then keeps the arms locked and does a reverse power bomb into like a stun gun. You're like, what the fuck is that?
But I know that's the point where you're like, oh my God, just somebody stop the damn match.
Yeah.
As a young Rey Mysterio Jr. fan, you're like, this is not what I expected.
No, absolutely not. And Rey does get his little hope spot towards the end, which is good. I'm glad that they gave him that much. But I love Dragon cutting it off with that. He, cuts off the springboard Rana that we talked about before and just kind of slingshots him off the ropes into that sit-out powerbomb. Just looked really badass, really decisive. And I will say that popped me. Like, not knowing exactly what the finish to this match was, after he did that, I was like, oh, that's it. That's great.
Yeah. I've always loved that finish. Great. Always have loved it. It's just so creative, so devastating looking. And again, Rey made his comeback, but he didn't do it in like he didn't do like a Superman comeback, really. He did it as like, I've got a last gasp, and he's still selling the beating that he's taken to that point. And then Ultimo just cuts him off again with that slingshot powerbomb, which is, quite frankly, such an awesome move that I'm shocked that nobody uses it now.
No, so much snap on it. Looked perfect. So yeah, I was surprised you chose this match, and but I see your point, because Rey is such a good babyface, such a good underdog, playing that face in peril. His selling is just great here, and it's just a really good display of how he can get you invested in his character, and it's not just about all the high spots and shit, which of course he excels at, but that's not really what this match is structured around. So I think I've seen the match before, but I certainly don't remember it being this kind of, brutality that I was really, really into. So
one of the
nice selection.
Thank you, sir. One of the things about Ray's selling that I wanted to point out is, like, a lot of guys, when they do their verbal selling, it comes off kind of hokey, like, it's like, okay, guys, get over it. But some guys are good at it, and Rey is really good at that. Like, when he's screaming in pain, like, it sounds legit. Like, it doesn't sound like somebody, like, trying to act. It sounds like he's, in agony, and it makes you feel sympathy for him. So, credit to him.
Well, he was getting your ass beat like your mama pulled down your pants like she was mad at you and beat your ass like Dusty.
This ain't no normal.
No, I mean, Dusty was impressed with this ass whooping, and as he should be. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody kick out as many times as Rey kicked out. I mean, it was like 100 times. It felt
every
like.
time. It's like, what is it going to take? I remember at one point, Bobby goes, he ain't going to beat him. He didn't beat him with that. He ain't going to beat him.
And he just,
you just don't normally see that many moves back to back like that. Just high impact stuff followed by pins, and you're just like, Jesus.
And I think they almost gave themselves an out because all of Ultimo's pins were so nonchalant. And Tony mentions that in commentary. He's like, he's given Mysterio a chance to survive here with some of these lackluster covers.
Because he just keeps expecting for him to be broken in half, really. With the shit that he's doing to him. And you got the, 3 rings set up there? 3 rings set up?
Yes, 3 rings.
So part of me wanted to see them just bounce from ring to ring. Like, why wouldn't they do that? That would have been fun. He would have been, getting ragdolled around more than he already was.
Right.
But that was, you guys said it all great. I mean, it was an awesome watch, and that's a bold, bright pink to wear. But when you can kick somebody's ass like that, I guess you can pull it off.
With green lipstick.
And like a little, like, dragon scale nonsense on his pants and stuff. That was great.
And don't forget about the managerial presence of Sonny Ono.
Of course.
Of course.
Really guiding him to success. He actually cheats a couple times in the match and attacks Rey Mysterio. And it leads to a great line on dialogue where Tony says, "That's the man that you sold out to last year." And Bobby Heenan says, I didn't sell anybody a bill of goods. You sold him something that didn't even belong to you. And I don't even want to talk about it right now. Well, that's fine. Let's drop it then.
They're so good.
Love the rich inner lives of the WCW personalities here.
Too.
So, Sonny Ono, the inventor of the selfie.
Oh,
Is
my
that
gosh.
right?
You are so right, Tim. He doesn't get the credit he deserves.
No, with
He was doing
the
selfies in 96, 95, 97.
right,
What,
with
a Polaroid?
The old disposable cameras.
Oh, the disposables. I bet none of those came out right. You can't take a selfie with a disposable camera.
Look, you do it enough times, you get a knack.
One right, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, come to think of it, they never did show us the final results, did they?
Because they're all like over his shoulder. Like his face was never in a shot. I promise.
He was.
You don't know that.
I do.
You don't know that. You can't do that.
We got a Ric Flair running.
Sonny Ono was a good man. I used to hang out with him backstage. He'd take selfies of us all the time. I'd say, "Hey, Sonny, you're pretty good. I like you." And he'd say, "Hey, why don't we form a new singing group?" I said, "You mean like Sonny and Cher time?" But no, I was a big Sonny Ono fan. I thought he was great.
Oh man, yeah. Also, the inventor of Super Star Wars. Ninja Star Wars. Yeah.
Ninja Star Wars.
Yeah, Ninja Star Wars with Eric Bischoff. That was their they were longtime business partners, and this was some business venture before either of them got into wrestling. They were just those ninja throwing star things that you had when you were a kid.
Yeah.
It was just one of those type of deals.
Oh.
I guess there was they somehow made a game out of it. I don't know.
Sounds like a racist Star Wars parody.
From when Eric was on Ric Flair's podcast that one time, he was talking about how he met Sonny Ono. Because I think Rick asked him, was like, how did you and Sonny meet? How did you guys ever come into contact with each other? And Eric said that they met during a karate competition or something back in like the early 80s.
Yeah, Eric was into that, right?
Yeah, and then they started that Ninja Star Wars deal. Yeah, the kickboxing, yeah. And so they started that Ninja Star Wars gimmick, and then years later, Eric contacted him to come in for WCW, and Sonny served as sort of the liaison for Eric with New Japan Pro Wrestling to get some of their stars over. So there you have it. There you have the secret origin of Sonny Bono, as Dusty always called him on commentary. There's that Sonny Bono.
Yes. But you're right. He does get his licks in here. He kicks Rey Mysterio out on the floor. Kicks him where? Kicks him in the belly welly.
The belly. He kicked that man right in the belly welly.
Exactly.
Generally with Dusty, you either got kicked in one of two places. Well, one of three places. Either in your hiney, either in your belly welly, or upside your noggin.
Yep. If it was a mafia kick, it was upside the noggin.
Right, absolutely.
All right. 2 matches in. We've got 1 to go. So we should probably go into a break, take a ringside release here, and pay some bills. When we come back, I won't tell you what the match is, but I will tell you it will not be a 1996 match. So, stick with us. More Talk'n WCW after the break.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Place to Be Nations, JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have over 24 podcasts available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com. We now offer them to you on 2 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we dive into topics running the gamut from today's WWE to the glory days of yesteryear and the ins and outs of the territory days. In addition to our full-length shows, we also deliver to you special pod blasts on topics old and new.
The Place to Be Nation Pop feed is a veritable treasure trove of great content. Offer tremendous shows covering the land of movies, television, life, comics, and sports, brought to you by the most knowledgeable and insightful folks in the podcast world.
You can find all these great shows, plus archives of our past podcasts from over the past 8 years as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth search projects, and much more. Be sure to support our site by using www.PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping. We want to thank our friends at Boneheads Wing Bar, ProWrestlingOnly.com, and TheHistoryOfWrestling.com as well. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Caras, etapas diferentes y los mismos que me odian dicen que son mis parientes. Vato, 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 how you make this get down? Man, was the one is el hombre y the ones who freak the sound. Booty pulling tricks like the David Copperfield, so let the sun just spill on the 2-inch wheel. I snatch the rabbit out your hat and choke it.
Place to Be Nation Pop, welcome back to Talk'n WCW. Before we get back to live action, we have a road report from around the nation here on the Place to Be Nation Pop feed. Let me tell you what else you can look forward to. First up, we have Todd Weber bringing back Weber Has Issues, now in podcast form. That's right, his former column for the website. He's talking about 3 new Marvel books and how accessible they are to comic fans. This time around, he's looking at Marvels, the Epilogue by Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross, History of the Marvel Universe, #1 from Mark Waid and Javier Rodriguez, and the much-hyped House of X, oh my, near and dear to my heart, first issue by Jonathan Hickman and Pepe Baby Larraz. Now, Jenny, you and I flipped the script on our latest Talk'n Pop, the parent show of this very podcast. We welcomed the multi-show host and multi-talented Andy Atherton. It was a journey that touched on his ventures as a podcaster, a producer, a screenwriter, a bartender, a DJ, and choreographer, evidently. So do check that show out. For as many podcasts as Andy hosts, he's not often in that third seat getting grilled. So do you think we did a good job of putting him on the spot?
Well, I sure did try, but...
Yes.
Varying levels of success.
We will let listeners be the judge of that. Also, we have the hard-traveling fanboys, of which Greg Phillips is one half. They debuted a new and potentially ongoing theme called Fix It or Forget It. And their first subject was Jonah Hex from 2010, starring Josh Brolin and Megan Fox. Is it salvageable? Is it irredeemable trash? Greg, what did you make of this? Was it a turd buster? I don't really remember even seeing this movie.
Well, the beauty of it is if you do decide to watch it, it will fly by because it's one of the shortest feature films I've ever seen in my life. It is a turd buster, but it's a turd buster that could have been polished a little bit. So what Nick and I kind of do in this series is see if we could put our brains together and fix some of these historically bad comic book movies. And I will say this, as bad as Jonah Hex is, it is not the worst comic book movie. I've definitely seen worse. There are nuggets of good ideas in here that could have been made better. And so kind of what we tried to do was go through, and what's funny on this episode, we kind of workshopped the idea of the show as we were doing the episode because I think we kind of determined that the fun thing to do, rather than necessarily completely erase some of these movies, is just to find ways to fix them. And there'll probably be some that we find there's just nothing we can do with. But in this case, we did find some ways that they could have made this better. Obviously, having a little bit longer than an hour and 10 to 15-minute runtime probably would help you flesh out your characters a little bit more, giving Megan Fox's character a little bit more to do, maybe not having the Dragon Balls be a big part of the script of an old Western.
Be a Western.
Be a Western, I believe, in all caps. I wrote down
Western
as I was watching this movie. And it was a fun discussion with Nick. It's a series that I think is going to open us up to having some fun guest shots, hopefully, down the line, hopefully including my co-hosts here, of people that can help us try to figure out how to address some of these movies. And some of them are going to be really, really challenging, such as Catwoman, which we're going to attempt to tackle at some point. And but you guys are welcome on, of course. And if anybody out there listening now has any ideas, let me know.
Well, as I've stated to you and Nick, I am game for any doo-doo shit comic book movie, anytime, any place. Okay, so the aforementioned Andy Atherton, his stable of podcasts. First up, you have Pop Goes to the Movies. That was with Andy and Jay Arsenio, Diamato, Jad. They got together to discuss the latest summer movie release, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, in a spoiler-filled review. So check that out, but do be aware that there are spoilers awaiting. Also, Andy had on Laugh-In Theater, watching the Kevin Smith film Dogma, JT Rosero. So that's kind of a favorite of mine in the Kevin Smith catalog of films, sort of an underrated favorite. Looking forward to hearing that. On a new Sunday Groove, David Sunday talks about some of his current favorite songs, the new movie Yesterday, and the Beatles, appropriately enough. Finally, DC for You is back with the first week of Justice League Month. This is with Todd Weber and Russell Sellers. They discuss the JLA's greatest stories, adapted media, and creators only on the DC4U podcast. And they also discuss the divisive Snyder Cut, which may or may not actually exist.
Of course it does.
Jenny, well, maybe that's a fix it or forget
Just the whole idea of
Just the whole
Snyder Cut.
concept of it.
We'll add
Forget
to the
it.
list.
Forget it. Jenny, tell us about the greatest song of the 80s tournament.
Yes, we are on to round 2 of the greatest song of the 80s tournament. We still have our polls going up every day, so you can like our Facebook page, and then you can vote on those every day. I wanted to run the polls from today by you guys and see where you stood. So we got from the Rio region, round 2, She Drives Me Crazy by the Fine Young Cannibals versus the Miami Vice theme song. I went She Drives Me Crazy on that one.
That's a tough one because She Drives Me Crazy. Sort of a one-hit wonder, right? It's not the most, but so good, and you want it to advance. Miami Vice theme, so iconic. But I don't think I like it as much as She Drives Me Crazy. So I'm voting. I'm going to vote right now, as a matter of fact.
Do it.
Hearing this live, folks, I'm going on the Facebook. I'm putting in Fine Young Cannibals as my vote.
Good job. What about you?
I'm gonna be the odd man out. For me, it was an easy choice. I'm actually not a big fan of the song She Drives Me Crazy. It's okay. It's fine. I don't dislike it. But Miami Vice theme is my favorite TV theme song of all time. So this was an easy choice for me. I went with Jan Hammer, and I knew it was a futile vote as soon as I hit the button. As soon as I hit it, I knew. I felt it in my veins that this was going to be a futile effort, but I was not going to let Jan Hammer down. So if you're out there, if for some reason Jan Hammer is a big fan of World Championship Wrestling and you're listening to this podcast, I want you to know, sir, that you influenced my childhood, that you created an earworm that will live on beyond your death, and that you were a part of the greatest cop procedural show in television history, Miami Vice.
How about it?
Put it on the tombstone. All right. Next up, we have If You Leave by OMD versus Pour Some Sugar on Me by Def Leppard. Now, this was hard for me, but I don't vote against Def Leppard ever, so
sure.
I had to do Pour Some Sugar on Me.
The drummer only had one arm. I had to go with Pour Some Sugar on Me.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Def Leppard guy, but come on, Pour Some Sugar on Me. It's got to be the runaway favorite here. I mean, If You Leave, it's okay, but not really a favorite of mine either. So, yep, easy choice.
I sort of jam on that song, though. What about you, Greg?
Which song?
If You Leave. I don't know. It has a...
Not really. I've never been a big fan of the song. It's been in some good movies, though.
Yeah, that's true.
For sure. But I don't know. It's okay. It's one of those songs. I think I know it from The Wedding Singer a lot. It's on there at one point, and that's cool. But I think just kind of divorced from the movie's context, if I just listen to the songs, I'd rather listen to Pour Some Sugar.
Okay, that's fair.
Sure, yeah.
All right, we got Limelight by Rush and versus Cool It Now by New Edition. I went Rush on this for sure.
I did too, because I don't even know what the other song is.
Well, fair enough.
I don't even know what the other song is either, but I always vote against Rush on general principles.
That's horrible and awful.
That's what I'm going to do. Look, I love some white people music. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, you do.
Rush is just the whitest of the white. I have to draw. The line has to be drawn here. So,
it was once told me. It was once told to me that Rush was a dude band and that girls didn't like Rush. I'm like,
oh really?
I kind of like Rush. What you talking about, Tom Sawyer? Okay.
Hawk once told me, "Oh, what a rush!" And you know, and as we know, he was the third man. So
that's right. that is a reference that will make no sense.
Moving on, we got Master of Puppets by Metallica.
By the way, dead heat between Limelight and Cool It Now. After I voted, it's at 50-50.
On Twitter, Limelight is winning quite a bit, 62-38.
All right.
Master of Puppets.
Disappointment. All right.
Metallica versus Wishing Well by
these are two
Terrence
good
Trent
songs.
D'Arby. Yeah, it's Metallica for me.
Yes, me too. I went with Master of Puppets as well. But Terry, I felt bad for this matchup because I had not even heard of this song, Wishing Well, until last year when we were formulating the original list of 80s tournament songs, and somebody posted a link to it, and I clicked on it. That song's a jam, man. That's a good song.
It is.
But no, I had to go Master of Puppets.
Funny thing about Wishing Well is a song I forgot existed until I watched Black Mirror's San Junipero.
Mm-hmm.
They play it at, what's the bar? Tucker's that they're partying at in the 80s. So with that said, I went ahead and voted for it, even though I know it's not going to win. There are better Metallica songs than Master of Puppets.
Right.
They won't need the help. They'll be fine.
All right, here we go. Don't Worry, Be Happy by Bobby McFerrin versus Bust a Move by Young MC.
Oh, it's got to be Bust a Move.
Yeah.
See, I went Don't Worry, Be Happy.
Oh.
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 Okay, Smarty, go to a party. Yeah. Just for that line
I'm
alone.
losing on Twitter, too, on
That's
that one.
true.
All
right.
And finally, Mr. Roboto from Styx versus Gimme All Your Lovin' from ZZ Top. I think this one was harder.
Yeah.
I went Mr. Roboto for just pure 80ness.
Mm-hmm.
It did also get referenced in Austin Powers in Goldmember. Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto.
Of course.
But ultimately, I had to go with Gimme All Your Lovin' because that's probably my favorite ZZ Top song, maybe. Or at least one of them. So I went with that one. I've always liked that song. It's got that kind of a badass guitar riff, that. I guess that's every ZZ Top riff. But,
I was going to say.
But it was pretty cool, is what I'm getting to. So I gave it the slight nod over the somewhat corny Mr. Roboto, even though I do like that song as well. I feel like Styx is going to end up getting the shaft in this tournament, which is unfortunate.
So too.
Styx gets the shaft. Well, I went ahead and voted for Mr. Roboto just in the spirit of it is more 80s than Give Me All Your Love, which feels like I wouldn't know whether it could be anywhere from 1970 to 1989 for all I know. Mm-hmm. So just never been big on ZZ Top anyway. So I will pick the more memorable, identifiably 80s song.
Was it the fact that their guitars turned around in a circle in their music videos? That was always a little strange to me. I love ZZ Top, but it was always freaky to me that they do the video and they'd spin their guitar around, but it would turn in a perfect circle.
Oh, okay, yes.
The hands of a clock.
I can't say that's what puts me off them, but probably
fair enough, sir.
Probably doesn't help.
Is it the beards? Is that what puts you off?
And the guy, and the fact that the guy who's named Beard doesn't have a beard.
Yes, that's going to be it.
That sounds right.
Just too cool for school. Come on.
All right.
No, they're fine. I saw them in concert. I saw them in concert in 2009. Yes.
How was that?
I don't remember.
Right.
Hey, weren't they going to bring in ZZ? Didn't they bring in ZZ Top to guest host Raw in 2010?
Sounds about right.
It's like, hey, I like this ZZ Top. Get him on Raw now. Vince, they haven't had a hit since 1986. I don't give a damn.
Make sure they spin their guitars.
Get them to do that guitar gimmick. I like that a lot.
That guitar.
Oh my God.
Without the beard, his name Beard.
All right. Once you've got done listening to every ZZ Top song, you can listen to our wrestling feed.
Wait, isn't there one more?
No, is there not? No? I don't think so.
This might be it.
I think we do.
Oh, dude, I'm too late. Yep.
Well, I'm going to cut that out. Post-production.
Or not.
I'll just leave it in.
I'm actually not too late. I did vote on this one that I thought that was part of this round.
Which one was it? Might as well.
It is West End Girls, Pet Shop Boys, versus She blinded me with science. Thomas Dolby.
West End Girls.
I went with She Blinded Me with Science on account of the fact that it doesn't suck. Just kidding. I say that because I had never actually heard this Pet Shop Boys song, and I listened to it and I was like, oh god, that's very very mid '80s,
which is the point,
right?
That was a very Nick Dukian. Oh God!
I was going for a Ric Flair, but I'll take Nick too. For once, as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, whoa.
What did you vote, Tim?
I voted She Blinded Me with Science. Also.
Well, I see how
Thomas Dolby. I mean, he didn't have a long, luxurious career. We got to give him some votes when we can.
Is that how that works? Pity votes.
Pity votes.
You want to win?
It lost 37% to 63%.
Oh yes, it's over. But the guy had the gumption to write a song in which he sings the chorus, but then he has another voice that comes in the background, repeat the chorus in a weird voice. You know, like, she blinded me with science. And then the guy's like, she blinded me with science. That's good stuff. Al?
Wow. I hope this thing wins the whole tournament now.
It should. It should make its comeback.
No.
She blinded me.
I wish I was as enthusiastic.
Was that Katharine Hepburn as?
Norman blinded me. Oh. With science.
This used to be a wrestling podcast.
It was for a little bit, and then we fucked it up. All right. Shit, now I gotta read. All right. All right. So, there was a new episode of Row 1, Seat 1 with Ben Zanny in which he recapped... What?
Tell them the feed.
The feed is the wrestling feed, because we already talked about the pop feed, so now we're moving on.
Every podcast is somebody's first.
Or last. Bless their hearts.
In this case.
Yeah. Sorry.
Bless their hearts.
You never forget your first.
They should not be listening to Talk'n WCW number 7 if they're going to... Anyway.
They might be into Rey Mysterio. In which case, they'll be very disappointed.
Yeah, they will be. Be like, why is this a podcast about Mike Tenay?
Like, when are they going to talk about Ray, man? He did the Splash Mountain into a reverse Frankensteiner.
Oh, Lord.
What are we doing? Okay. On the wrestling feed, there was a new episode of Row 1, Seat 1, number 16, in which Ben Zanny talks to that Pete guy, Sheriff Pete, about SCI.
I'm sorry. What has happened?
I broke Tim and myself.
She deafened me with science.
This is a disaster.
Not unlike the natural disasters you can hear all about on the Place 3 Nation wrestling feed.
Let the record state, I have not had the first drop of alcohol tonight at all. I am as sober as I've ever been on a podcast. And this is the most any podcast has ever fallen apart.
So bad. Holy shit. We have lost all of our cred. And this one live read. Live read. We were doing well.
We're fine.
We were good.
This damn tournament just...
It just broke us. All right.
Look, we're passionate. We can't help it.
Ben talks to Pete about SCI weekend that just concluded this past weekend. And then they also talk about the other shows that happened within that whole tournament last weekend. Anyway, it's a good listen. The main event is brand new this week, and it is episode 131, in which Ben and Pete showed up as guests for Scott and Nate and Steve Willie, and then they talked about NXT TakeOver and SummerSlam. Then they did a TNA Classic pay-per-view recap, and then there's a new episode of No Holds Barred with Aaron and JT talking their greatest WWE pay-per-view and TV match ever lists and going through and talking through all of their thoughts there. In the latest episode of the Place to Be podcast, JT and Scott and John D'Amato break down Survivor Series from 1989. And on the new ECW-focused podcast, in which I am a part, we had our first full-length episode. It is The Night the Line Was Crossed. And so that's a fun listen, in which we try to get through an hour-long time limit draw match. Spoiler alert.
Tully Blanchard, right?
No, it was Terry Funk.
Oh,
yeah. So that's a good
Going
one.
an hour.
Yeah.
And what year is this now?
This is from February of 94.
94.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
But
did you cross the line that night?
we all crossed several lines that night. I mean, it's a three-way, so you can't help it when it comes to that.
That's always been such a great name, though. The Night the Line Was Crossed.
Oh, I know. It created part of the mystique of ECW. Paul Heyman's genius was the naming of these shows.
Mm-hmm.
And we all still joke about the commercial for like the night the Kimono wanna lay a dance atop the ECW arena.
That's right.
With my client Brock Lesnar.
Ooh. I'll pay money for that. Yeah, it was always the night of something that always was just
right.
Like you're reading about it in a history textbook.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
All right, Greg, what's going on PlaceBeNation.com?
I'm so glad you asked, Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
In this non-pre-rehearsed segment here that I was unprepared for, of course. But I will tell you, just off the top of my head here, that on PlaceBeNation.com, Place to Be Nation's tribute to 1994 is off and running with a brand new piece on Woodstock 1994, as well as a piece where JT looks back at a very special match in my childhood, which, of course, is old man Bob Backlund challenging Bret Hart for the very championship he had lost a decade earlier, the WWF title, on an episode of Superstars in the middle of 1994. Quite a momentous match that would lead to one of the better characters of its era in Mr. Backlund. Glenn Butler every week has got the weekly walk to take us around the World Wide Web with all sorts of antics and news items across the world of, well, the world and the internet. Also, we want to encourage everyone to check out our social media pages, Place to Be Nation. We got a variety of them. Just look for Place to Be Nation. You'll find us on every social media platform imaginable. And also the message board at bigelow34.proboards.com, where you can find all the information to join our greatest WWE pay-per-view and television match tournament. This is, or not tournament, project. Duh. It's a project in which we are trying to determine the 100 greatest matches in the history of World Wrestling Entertainment. So get in on the conversation today. Start researching your list. And just between us, folks, if you're interested in doing some live watches, I understand that there is a group watch thread that you may be able to join at the behest of Mr. Tim Capel here. So we are rapidly approaching the time where everyone will have to get their list together. So please get involved in that tournament. Watch some classic matches. If I had to pick out sort of a match that someone might want to watch randomly, I would say let's go with December 2003 Monday Night Raw, Shawn Michaels, Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. Give that a watch. See if it makes your top 100.
Absolutely. And if you want to get in on that live watch action, just, I would say drop me a line on really any social media presence. Give you my Twitter at the end of the show when we do that piece of business. But anywhere that this episode is socialized, whether it's Facebook or placetobenation.com or on Twitter, lots of ways of getting in touch with us. If I don't see it, someone will bring it to my attention, and we will get you added to our live watch Facebook group. A lot of fun with those. We try to do them about once a week. Mm-hmm. And with that said, we are going to go back to the ring here for our final match selection. I will say before I tell you what that is, I'm going to tell you what that isn't. And that is the trying to preemptively, I don't know, jump in front of potential criticism we'll get for not talking about Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Eddie Guerrero at Halloween Havoc 1997. All of us considered it at some point, I think it's fair to say, and almost landed on the list here, but it's, I don't know, it's the type of thing that almost isn't what this show is about, because it is a very, very well-known match. I feel like pretty much everyone has seen it. That said, it's such a good match that none of us would be at a loss for words to talk about it.
Not at all.
It's fantastic, and I'm not going to say it won't come up at some point on Talk'n WCW. There will be, I've already thought about many, many, many other potential opportunities and venues for talking about that match on themed episodes we may potentially do. So, I don't know. Just keep in mind that...
Since I teased it on the last episode, I will say that was actually the match I was referring to in the last episode when I said, when I kind of hinted around at what since it wasn't War Games 92, what my favorite WCW match of all time is, my number one. It's actually that one, Halloween Havoc 97, Eddie and Ray. But as you said, there were reasons that we thought it was best to sort of shed a light on some of these other matches.
Yep. So I would say just keep in mind, Rey Mysterio did not wrestle himself in that match. There was another man in it, someone that we're all pretty big fans of, and I have no doubt will be talked about on this show. So now that we've talked about a match that we're not going to talk about, the match that we are going to talk about is from Monday Nitro on February 8th of 1999. This was the one that I picked. Finally, I have broken the 1996 barrier here on Talk'n WCW. First time I think we've ever had a match beyond the year 1996 chosen by anyone.
Is that right?
So, I think it is. I was kind of doing the mental inventory, and we've done kind of a heroic job here of not getting into that late 90s WCW stuff that I think in a lot of ways is more memorable to people, certainly more memorable to me. But I don't know. I've spent a lot of time in 1996, as we discussed earlier, and sort of have discovered some hidden gems in years prior to that. But this I just thought was a good example of a showcase match, really for two guys, but Ray in particular, just in showing what he was capable of and just his growth as a performer up to this point. So it is Rey Mysterio versus Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg, by the way, spelled wrong on the Chiron.
Amazing.
We are 3 for 3 on That's So WCW misspellings. And boy, did they fuck this up, because while they followed the I before E except after C rule, problem is there's not a C in Blitzkrieg. It's K.
You mean it's not Blitzkrieg?
Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg, as Greg and his peers might have referred to him. So they're wrong on both counts on their Chiron when his name pops up. But, hey, WCW, ladies and gentlemen. This is Blitzkrieg's in-ring televised debut. He'd been working dark matches for a while for WCW, but this is the first time we see him on TV. And Blitzkrieg is a guy that I think a lot of people may have just not seen at all because he is sort of a flash in the pan. His only year of active competition on television is in 1999, just a few months from the early part of the year really into, I would say, summer, and he just sort of fades away. Apparently retired and became a computer technician. So
Really?
got out of the business altogether for whatever reason.
He's had offers to come back, but he's turned them down every time.
And contrary to what you accused me of earlier, Greg Phillips, I did not choose this match solely because there's a Konnan promo at the beginning.
Sure.
Solely because of that.
That said, there is a Konnan promo at the beginning of this match. Do we have K-Dog on the line with us by chance? Could we maybe get him to give us a reenactment of this promo?
Yo. Orale! Arriba, la raza! You know them strawberries and the black and the white, they be talking about they for life. Konnan somos unos pacos locos forever. And everybody here in this arena who here is Bowdy and
Rowdy.
Thank you, Konnan. That was a great drop.
Wow, K-Dog, how about it? Lots of great run-ins. You never know what to expect here on Talking WCW.
And I understand that
great cameo.
He actually just DM'd me, and he wants me to say that everybody has been about they for life.
Friendly reminder. All right. I'll tweet that out to the world.
Yes, please.
Now, Blitzkrieg, he does look like a Power Ranger, admittedly.
Yes.
Look, we'll call a spade, but don't sell him short here. It's a case where Rey Mysterio is now meeting his match in terms of speed and agility in a way that he really hadn't before. I think his closest maybe contemporary or peer would be like maybe a Juventud Guerrera. Yeah. And just being able to keep up with him and do the crazy high spotty springboard type stuff on a regular basis. And here we've got a guy who no one has ever seen before busting out all these moves. And he is so unpredictable. He's only been in the business for a few years. This is his debut on a national stage, yet he is wrestling like a veteran, is Blitzkrieg. Mm-hmm. So that was something at the time that, talk about being new and exciting, that just came out of nowhere. And I think took people by surprise, and people really got behind Blitzkrieg, and he built that. I would call it a cult following, but it could have been more. It was just the fact that he wasn't around long enough to really get as much momentum as I think he ultimately could have. It's maybe the type of thing where the schedule wore him down, was too much for him. He couldn't continue to compete on the level that he did night in and night out, which is true for a lot of guys. And, sitting here in 2019, I just look at that like, I hope that's not the reason he got out of the business, because there's definitely a place for guys like that. And you don't want somebody as talented as he was to be run out of the industry because of that reason,
Right. He was spectacular. I mean, he really was.
Yeah.
He quickly became. I was 15 at the time when I first saw him on Nitro in '99, and he became. Or I guess I was 14, about to become 15, and he became instantly one of my favorite wrestlers. He was another one of those guys that it felt like the next step up from what we had seen, right? He was taking what had been regular flips, and he was adding a twist to them that we had never seen before. He was getting more hang time than we had ever seen before from guys. So he was that guy, the one guy that could match Rey Mysterio, and felt like he was the future. And really, it's a shame, like you mentioned, he could have had some big matches even on the independent circuit in the 2000s and stuff like that, or even today if he wanted to come back and have a match. But it's one of the rare examples of somebody getting out of wrestling and staying out of wrestling.
Yep, big time. And to that point about Rey really meeting his match here, it's an interesting adjustment that takes place where it's now Rey Mysterio who's in the position of wanting to slow the match down, right? And employing almost more of a power offense. And I mean, there's a sequence where he just crushes Blitzkrieg with a lariat that just is right out of like Eddie Guerrero's playbook. He hits him with a superplex. Again, stuff you don't really see from the luchadors from a cruiserweight like Rey Mysterio here. And the tide turns ultimately in the match with Blitzkrieg missing his very spectacular sky-twisting press, and Rey coming back with that top rope Frankensteiner. He had kind of switched to using that after, I guess his niece couldn't endure a whole lot of those springboard Hurricane Rana pins that he was doing. As great as that looked, probably wasn't a move that he could perform indefinitely. He's, I think, got 2 major knee surgeries behind him at this stage in 1999. So it's too bad that that's already starting here for him.
Oh, yeah. One of the things I immediately noticed in this match is he's wearing that big black knee brace.
Yeah.
That kind of became part of his permanent attire moving forward.
Yeah.
Something I noticed he was wearing was an LWO shirt.
Oh, God.
And I said to myself, what is LWO? And
the Latino World Order.
Right.
Yes.
That doesn't seem like his scene, really. What's the story there?
Well,
Tim, you want to tackle this one?
I'll try. Real briefly, the LWO, as you may have gathered, was sort of a play on the NWO. This was conceived by Eddie Guerrero, I believe, in the fall of 1998.
Yes.
He cuts this, like, work-shoot promo on Eric Bischoff that has a line about Bischoff throwing coffee at him that no one would have got unless they were reading like dirt sheet, one of those types of promos that was just sort of felt edgy at the time, maybe if you were 14 years old, but looking back on is just pretty lame and incoherent. But it was what it was, and Eddie does this thing where he's going to walk away. He's walking out on the promotion, and he then resurfaces with like a bodyguard and slowly starts kind of recruiting and rounding up all of the luchador wrestlers and inducting them into the Latino World Order, where he's going to be looking out for them because they're being exploited. And I mean, there was a germ of truth behind this thing, right? I mean, let's not go crazy or anything, but there was a pretty big racial discrimination lawsuit which WCW lost in like the year 2000.
Of course they did.
Of course. And yeah, this is a precursor to that, but it's just basically a stable for Eddie and all of the Lucha guys. And he was trying to get Rey Mysterio to join. And as you surmise, that's not really Rey's jam. Like, he's not really a joiner, wants to do it on his own. Plus, these guys are heels. He doesn't trust Eddie.
Right, yeah.
So Eddie is like keeps giving him the shirt, and Rey won't wear it. And they're having these matches where if Rey loses, he has to join the LWO, like under duress, basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean that's how you want to recruit people. It's just like force
and they
them.
would even talk. Yeah, they would even talk about that on commentary too. They're like, why does Eddie want to force Rey into this group? He's not going to be a loyal member and doesn't want to be there. Never really got an explanation for that. But ultimately, Eddie does defeat Mysterio and forces him to join the faction. And Rey continues being this like reluctant member of the LWO.
At one point, Eddie takes him into his trailer and actually forces Rey to say that he loves the LWO, even though he don't.
How would... I can't do an Eddie Guerrero voice.
I better not do an Eddie Guerrero voice.
I better not either.
You did bad enough with the Konnan voice.
Well, the Konnan one earlier. Yeah, I know. I thought about that afterwards. I was like, maybe that didn't go the way I really planned on it going, but just gonna rock with it.
We'll workshop it.
Yeah.
We'll workshop that one.
Anyway,
that was not something that happened. But what did happen was Eddie Guerrero was in a terrible car accident on... I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I'm just uncomfortable. On New Year's Eve, wrapped his car around a tree or flipped a bunch of times or something, and was terribly injured to the point that people weren't sure if he would ever walk again, let alone wrestle again. And the only logical response, now that they have lost their leader, is for the LWO to disband. And this is around the time that the NWO proper is having their reunification. They're going through a reconstruction, if you will. And so it's the NWO Wolfpack and the NWO Black and White. They are getting back together. And I was in attendance at the Thunder where the new and improved NWO Elite in the red and black summarily just wiped out one after the other all of these LWO guys and tore their shirts off. And basically they were like, we got to protect our brand. That's supposed to be Nash voice, I guess. But it's a little bit Scott Steiner at the same time. They both have that high...
LWO.
Yeah, that kind of high voice. They're high talkers. And, they wiped out the LWO on Thunder. And, I remember seeing that live in Richmond at the Coliseum. With one exception, Rey Mysterio, they tell him he needs to take off the shirt. The LWO is done. This thing's over. And you need to ditch this, and he is now refusing to do it because once again he doesn't want to have his hand forced. So this guy who was never loyal, never really wanted to be in the LWO, is now like the surviving member carrying the flag of the LWO.
Interesting.
Very WCW. And this is what leads. After this match, very shortly thereafter, Rey is going to lose his mask in a match with, what was it? It was a mask versus Miss Elizabeth's
hair match, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a tag team match.
Yes, Rey and Konnan versus Lex Luger and Big Sexy.
Oh, Jesus.
And Miss Elizabeth is in the corner of Lex Luger and Big Sexy.
Big Sexy.
Yeah.
And they put her hair on the line.
It's just pretty funny.
They put her hair on the line.
Her hair.
Yeah, Nash is cutting the promo, and he's like, because Konnan steps up. We should mention he was part of the NWO Elite until he steps up to defend Rey and says, "Hey man, he's like my little brother. You don't need to take his shirt or whatever." And then Nash is like, "We're gonna take his shirt," and they go back and forth for a little while, and then finally, Conan's trying to put his foot down, and he's like, he did a Splash Mountain, and then he reversed it into a Frankenstein. and Kevin Nash boots him, and they beat him down. And so Nash comes out the next week, and they challenge him. They're like, you need to. We'll put Ray's mask on the line, but you need to put your hair on the line. And Nash is like, I got you one better. We're gonna put Elizabeth's hair on the line.
What the fuck?
And Elizabeth turns to him and she goes, "What? My hair?" And then Lex is like, "I just trust him." That's the horrible Lex Luger voice, but
No, that's perfect.
I just trust him. Norman.
So wait. For
Yes.
luchadors,
Question.
their masks are like very, very important, right?
Yes.
So like it's a huge deal, the whole unmasking thing. Is it equivalent to Elizabeth's hair in any way, shape, or form?
Here's the thing. Hair to a luchador is rather important as well. So you see a lot of mask versus matches. You might see hair versus hair matches in lucha as well. You might see mask versus hair matches. Not a totally uncommon occurrence. This was just kind of a bastardization of that whole concept.
Oh my
really.
gosh. All right. I didn't mean to like get us off on the whole thing.
And let's be honest, there's no way that Kevin Nash was going to lose those luxurious locks.
No.
So he had to put somebody else's up.
Had to. Yeah. So, but nobody gets their hair shaved. It's Ray who loses his mask at the tag team match at Super Brawl. So, wow, that was a lot. But that's 1999 WCW, man. That's just. This is why perhaps we've avoided the year
Maybe so.
that we have.
Well, my thoughts
all
on this
that
match.
to say, I love the match. Yes.
Yeah. They, I thought he actually had the most chemistry with Blitzkrieg as he, like, more than the other two matches that we watched.
It was great.
It was more of what I was expecting, as far as fast paced and flippy, flyy, dangerous maneuvers or whatever the fuck, Tony would say. Tremendous from whatever he kept saying, something about maneuvers. And what was the other? Towards the end, it looked a little weird. Like they didn't know how they wanted to end it, or maybe somebody was hurt. I don't know. What do y'all think?
I don't know. I don't remember there being. What about you, Tim? Do you remember anything standing out about the finish? Well, I guess to a degree that it was a different finish. Like you kind of hinted at this earlier. It wasn't the typical fin. Like Ray's finish used to be the what we would later call the West Coast Pop, the springboard Hurricane Rana pin, and this was kind of him doing more of an Ultimo Dragon style. Just top rope Frankensteiner Hurricane Rana kind of thing with the springboard twist added in, I guess. And so it was a little bit different. I wasn't expecting it to be the finish, to be honest. I kept thinking he was going to kick.
Too. Yeah.
That became his regular. He transitioned to using that as his pretty. And then that's the thing with a lot of WCW cruiserweights is you don't necessarily associate any one hard and fast finisher with a lot of them.
Right.
So Ray would kind of cycle through stuff, and this top rope Frankensteiner was what he had switched to right around this time, I want to say, and probably for the rest of his WCW run, that's kind of his go-to finish.
Mm-hmm. And so that was really what I guess what stood out to me was it was a little bit different finish than we were used to, but I thought it was pulled off well. I thought both guys were Blitzkrieg was really good, man. I haven't watched a Blitzkrieg match in so long, and Tim, you kind of hinted at one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is that this is one of the very few Ray matches where he gets to work big. Mm-hmm. So he gets to wrestle big and he gets to be the one that grounds Blitzkrieg at times. And he hits him with that, you mentioned that powerful clothesline, that lariat that he nails him with. Yeah. I don't remember the last time I saw Ray throw that move in a match. Like that's not one of his That's not one of his moves that he goes to a lot. And even stuff where, like, he would hit a big power move, and then he would go to the middle rope and, like, celebrate, you know? Like, kind of like, look what I just did. I don't get to do that very often.
That crazy-ass, like, Bronco Buster in the corner.
The Bronco Buster, which he would adopt around this time, yeah.
Yeah, he started doing that, too. Yeah. I always think of that as more like the maskless Rey Mysterio.
Right.
But he had started doing that a little bit earlier.
Little devil horns.
Oh, my God.
Another thing that nobody's talked about yet. What about this garbage entrance music for Rey for this match?
Yeah, damn. The recycled mid-90s generic entrance music. That's real bad.
Yeah, Blitzkrieg gets the old stunning Steve Austin music.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And Rey gets like this weird like Konnan rap song, I think, as his entrance. That like it's so slow paced. It's not like anything to get you hyped for a match. It was
it's not a wrestling entrance theme. It's just it was just a rap song that I remember when they debuted the world premiere of Konnan's rap music video, and you're like, okay. And it was
Disco Inferno making fun of it. Yeah.
And in all honesty, it wasn't that bad as that kind of stuff went in 1999.
It just wasn't a wrestling theme song.
Yeah, it wasn't a wrestling theme.
Even Rey's song before that like duh 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 duh. It was so iconic at that point that I don't think anybody really wanted it changed. But no. So he comes out and they have a hell of a match with Rey rocking the knee brace and yet still hitting everything with precision, with crispness. Blitzkrieg's hitting everything with precision and crispness. I wanted to ask you a question, Tim. You might have the answer to this. Who's the referee in this match? Billy Silverman?
Billy Silverman, I believe, yes.
He is god-awful.
Yes.
Holy shit. This is as bad a job of wrestling officiating as I've ever seen. So at one point in this match, they're doing this great sequence, back and forth, and Blitzkrieg catches Rey with a tilt-the-world backbreaker.
Oh, my God.
And he taunts. Awesome. And as he's taunting after this backbreaker, not a single part of his body is touching Rey Mysterio.
No,
and Billy
he's literally moving back and forth.
And Billy Silverman counts 1. And Billy Silverman counts 2. And Blitzkrieg stands up and turns his head to Billy Silverman and waves his hands, no, no, no. And Billy Silverman goes to count 3 as Blitzkrieg runs the ropes away from Rey Mysterio. And then Silverman ignores that he counted 3, and Blitzkrieg hits a senton bomb on Rey, and then a backflip, a moonsault, standing moonsault, covers Rey for an actual cover. And then when it's time to do the actual cover, Silverman speeds up his count so fast from what it was before that Rey doesn't get a chance to get his shoulder up before the hand would have hit the mat. So Silverman has to obviously stop counting so that Rey can lift his shoulder and Silverman can say 2. And
I forgot about that.
I'm thinking if, like, I remember, like, in the early 90s when, like, there was a bad refereeing job and somebody like a Bret Hart was in the match or somebody like a Shawn Michaels or a Ric Flair or something like that, and they would just get pissed at the referee. And so I'm thinking, man, if that had been, like, Bret Hart in there, that referee would have been getting an ass chewing the rest of that match. But these guys, to their credit, they just go along with it and have a tremendous match. Blitzkrieg's Sky Twister press was a thing of beauty, even though he missed it. Rey was great here. One of the things that I wanted to talk about on this show that I mentioned kind of earlier is even though we see so many incredible things from today in wrestling, whether it's Ricochet in WWE or Will Ospreay in New Japan or guys like that are doing the Young Bucks, they're doing these incredible moves, flips and everything. There is something still going back and watching Rey Mysterio do these moves that he does better than the guys that are doing it now. When he does
it better.
And even though something on this past Monday Night Raw, and he had a match that was just mind-boggling. But when he does things like simple things, like when he does a Hurricane Rana, watch his legs, how they wrap around the guy's head and make it look like he's actually using his momentum to flip them. Whereas a lot of guys, when they do their Frankensteiners or their Hurricane Ranas, their legs are kind of loose around the guy, and the guy just clearly just flips forward just because it's what you're supposed to do. Even though you get the impression the guy could just stand still and the guy would fall off of his shoulder.
Yes,
There's no contact being made. When Rey hits his moves, he hits his moves. And when it comes time to sell, he sells his ass off. He's not just waiting to get to the next bump. He's selling as if he's in a fight, as if he's hurting and in pain. And then the smoothness with which he hits these sequences and these moves, it's just incredible. The pace, the athleticism, it's incredible. And it's having that intuition of knowing when to do things. Not just to do move after move after move, but to know when to do each move, how to get to each move, and how to make it look organic to the match. Mm-hmm. He was really a special talent and still is to this day, but certainly Rey Mysterio Jr. to be doing this all before he even reached the age of 25, by the way, all these matches that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. I don't know that we've seen much like it since then, at least from his style.
And I think it's good that you don't have people just trying to flat out lift what Rey Mysterio did and what he was, especially in his prime. I mean, Ricochet is great and
he's amazing. Yeah.
My favorite performers to watch today, and is spectacular at doing the things that he does. But the things that Ricochet does are not really the things that Rey Mysterio did.
Right.
And I think when you do fly a little bit too close to the sun, which I think they did with Sin Cara. I think he was very much designed to just Rey, and he's going to be sort of cynically when they felt like Rey was cooked,
Yeah.
And we saw how that ended up. I mean, I sort of feel bad for the guy because Sin Cara was good at doing certain things, but when they just tried to make him a Rey Mysterio clone, it fell awfully flat, and he fell on his face, literally and figuratively. So, yeah, I definitely get what you're saying there. And the reason I chose this match, first of all, I think it's a tremendous match. I'm very glad it exists, but it's one of those just sort of textbook opening match, pop the crowd on Nitro sort of deals where it does exactly what it sets out to do. It's a nice showcase for a debuting talent in Blitzkrieg. Really nice showcase, in fact, and a cool win and just a little highlight reel for Rey Mysterio, feather in his cap. So,
and Blitzkrieg gets more in this match than you might expect going in. I think that's kind of what I thought watching this match is I was expecting this to be maybe a 4-minute match where Blitzkrieg would get 2 or 3 moves and then Rey takes over and gets the win with his finish. But, this is really booked as an even match, a great showcase for a new talent. And this match also gives us a not that rare chance to hear Larry Zbyszko say, "Oh, he hit the pole."
This is true.
Was that Larry Zbyszko?
Yes, it was. Our commentators were Tony, Larry, and who was the third man? Mike. Yeah, Tony, Larry, and Mike.
I couldn't place the third voice. I never could. I meant to ask you guys who that was. I would have never imagined it was Larry. Ah!
I used to be pretty neutral and just indifferent to commentator Larry Zbyszko. Watching him now, I don't know if it's just I've gotten older or if I'm paying more attention than I used to. I don't know, but I cannot stand commentators.
Yeah, it was not great.
Him talking as Rey does this incredible move. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing about that is it's all fun and games until you can't walk anymore.
Yeah. Debbie Downer. Thanks. Appreciate that.
He would do that all. Jericho wrote about that in his first book, by the way, about how all the cruiserweights hated Larry Zbyszko.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He would pretty much bury their style of wrestling on commentary. I don't understand all this flying around they're doing. Bobcat Goldthwait for some reason. And I don't remember the exact line that Jericho says in the book, but he's just like, he's talking about watching a match with Eddie Guerrero backstage of one of the cruiserweight matches, and they were just fuming about how like Larry was just shitting on every time they do anything that involved leaving their feet. Why would you leave your feet voluntarily?
In any case, pay-per-view caliber match here on Nitro. Think it's fair to say. Yeah. And if you want to see these guys in another match, they did have one more singles bout that you can watch on the WWE Network. That was on the June 24th, 1999 Thunder. So that one, not really as strong as what we saw here. Otherwise, I would have picked it. This is post-unmasking for Rey. So, unfortunately, when he lost the mask, he kind of lost a little bit of his talent. And that's, where he got it back. I mean...
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he got both back, as a matter of fact.
He's
so,
grooved, too.
Yeah, but my patience with Rey Mysterio sort of runs out after he loses the mask, which, I mean, is not his fault. But
no, Eric was going through a big anti-mask phase at that time. Like they took Hoovie's mask, they took Rey's mask. I think they wanted to take a few other masks along the way. They took
Psychosis.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
And he should have, as Bobby Heenan said, he should have kept his mask on. So.
Well, that's right.
Not a handsome man.
Not a nice looking young man. No.
Right.
In any case, anything else on this match, or are we...
just a great hidden gem, man. I would have never thought of this match. I'm glad you picked it. Nitro is such a great show for these little surprise hidden gem matches that you wouldn't expect, and this is certainly one of them. I didn't remember it, and then I watched it, and I was like, wow, that was spectacular. So, great choice. That's what the show's all about.
Exactly. My compliments to cagematch.net, because I certainly did not remember this existing. So, tried to find it and wanted to find something specifically, as you said, more than, just a 5-minute bullshit TV match. So, anyway, glad y'all enjoyed. Hope the listeners enjoyed as well. And with that said, we should probably talk about our social media presences, should we not?
Let's do that.
Jenny, where can the people find you on social medias?
You can find me on Twitter at JennyCruz2814. Coming up, I have the third episode of the ECW pod, Extreme Three-Way Dance, coming up soon. And then I will also be talking SummerSlam on the reaction show with Nate Milton. So check that one out too. What about you, Tim?
Very interesting. I am on Twitter at Cyke68, CYKE68, and I don't really have anything else to promote. There will be another Marvel Age podcast. Look for that later this month or even into early September. God, how are we almost into September?
I know, that's crazy.
Yeah. Greg, any social media for you or things to promote?
Yes, people can find me on Twitter at gphillips8652. That's GPHILLIPS 8652. I am, of course, a part of the weekly Hard Traveling Fanboys podcast where we talk comics, all things comics. And this month, for the first time in a while, we have no theme this month. We're just kind of picking what we want to talk about. And in this case, we've got a couple more shows coming up this month. Next week will be, this week will be whatever we talked about last night when we recorded, which was a countdown of our favorite rogues galleries in comics, which was an interesting discussion with some interesting and unique choices. And then next week we will be hitting up, I believe, an Off the Page where we'll talk about the second season of AMC's Preacher, which neither one of us has seen yet. So looking forward to that. And then wrapping things up this month, we will have an episode of the Long Book Hunters where we are going to review the first volume of Garth Ennis's comic book, The Boys, which has been adapted into a critically acclaimed series on Amazon Prime. So that's what we've got coming the rest of August.
Excellent. A lot of great content to look forward to. Talking WCW, we'll be back with another episode about a month's time. Mm-hmm. Jenny, it's going to be your pick.
Is it my pick?
It is. Do you have a pick yet? If you don't, it's okay.
I
but
do have something in mind.
You do.
And I guess we've kind of gotten in this tradition of telling what our next episode will be. So I'm feeling, after watching all of that sweet, sweet Rey Mysterio magic, I kind of want to get dirty. I'm kind of feeling kind of rude. So I'm thinking a little ravishing Rick Rude.
Oh, wow. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Like it.
I wondered if one of you two was going to go there. And I have thoughts. And
good.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out if it pays to be rude.
It probably does.
Well, it's not for us to say just yet, but we will next time on Talkin' WCW. We hope you enjoyed this outing, and we hope you will do it again. See you next time.